Hi everyone, hope you're all doing good. Let me know if you can hear the audio, let me know in the chat, and I'm just gonna start in a couple of minutes. It's still a minute to go for one, but yeah, I'll just take this minute to just check if everything is in place, everything is working fine or not, and then we'll start. Just let me know if you can hear me in the chat. I'll be looking at the chat. In between, if there's any problem or anything, you can mention it there. I would be seeing. All right, so I can see a lot of people having a fight on competitive coding in the chat. Let's not get into it. Let's just keep our focus on what the video is about, that is mastering JavaScript. We can discuss competitive programming later on in some other session if any one of you who is in favor of competitive programming and against of that wants to join me in that live. So let's go and start with the topic, that is mastering JavaScript. Now in this video, I actually want to cover basically everything it takes you as a beginner, as someone who has never worked with JavaScript in general, to master it. So let's start first of all about me, who I am, and people who are watching this video for the first time, who have arrived on the channel for the first time, why you should probably stick around for this talk if you are someone who wants to get into JavaScript or is already in JavaScript and wants to advance his level, upskill himself or herself, just get better as a JavaScript developer. So I sell myself as a full stack developer on if you want to have, if you are looking for a full stack developer or anything, that's what I say to people, that I can work with front end, back end, which constitutes of a full stack developer. I work with JavaScript for the most part, whether it's on front end or it's on back end. Back end obviously consists of Node, and the runtimes part is for Node, React Native, Electron, stuff like that. So most of my work revolves just around JavaScript, and this is basically what I do on a day-to-day basis as well. Again, CodeDam, which is one of the things I'm actively working on right now, codedam.com, works on 100% JavaScript. That is, the entire architecture of codedam.com is written in JavaScript on front end. On back end, I use Node, so there's that. Then finally, some of the things I work very often, that is on a day-to-day basis, would be React, Webpack, Babel, stuff like that, those sort of toolkits. So I'm usually working with JavaScript, TypeScript actually, not really JavaScript, but we can say it's one and the same thing. And on the toolkit side, I would be working on React, Webpack, stuff like that. So this is again the same picture I always use, because this is like the only DSLR photo of mine. So yeah, if you have never seen me, this is me. Just like I said, CodeDam uses JavaScript all along. This is why, this is like one of my favorite languages as well, because you can do so much with JavaScript. That is the point. With just a single language, it has never been possible to write servers, to write front-end applications, to write desktop applications, to write mobile applications. It has never been possible in the past. So this is one of the reasons I love JavaScript. Well, you might be asking, first of all, why JavaScript in 2020? Why is it, it would be a good choice? Just like I said in the last slide, that it runs at a lot of places. That is like the most important thing. That is like the most useful aspect of JavaScript. You can transfer your knowledge immediately from one part, that is from front end, from one industry, to back end, to mobile application, to anything you can imagine which runs a computer, right? Because essentially JavaScript needs a V8, that is a software which can actually run the JavaScript just in time, which one of the softwares is V8. That is available, that is written in C, C++, and is available on most architectures. So you can port it anywhere You can write it on servers, IoT devices, even SpaceX use that Chromium part in their UI design on the Dragonfly 2, which they launched. I did a video on that. So if you're interested into that, just take a look there. And of course, browser uses JavaScript all the time. The next reason is JavaScript is actually fast. I mean, I'm not really talking about when JavaScript came back in 2000s and 1990s, when it was just an interpreted language, but now in 2020, with some of the best minds working on V8, that is the most performant, you can say a most performant virtual machine, most performant intermediate, which converts your JavaScript just in time to machine code, to bytecode, to whatever it finds suitable. It makes it super fast. JavaScript has been worked upon so much because it is used in web from the starting that it has actually become a very good language independently as well, with the advances in the runtimes available. Huge community of developers is lowers the barrier of entry a lot. That means anybody who knows a little bit can actually become a JavaScript developer. Why is that? Because you're going to see you have so much content available online, you have so much resources available online. The community is huge. A lot of developers actually use JavaScript, so that you can you can just go ahead and ask anyone for support on Twitter, on forums like these. Then one good reason is there's a lot of opportunity on JavaScript front, right? So you can be a front-end developer, you can be a back-end developer if you know just JavaScript. You can also call yourself full stack developer if you have a little bit of other technologies in your bag as well. Works on mobile, works on Lambdas, which is like if you have worked with AWS, you can write Node.js on AWS Lambda. If you have worked with Cloudflare, you can write JavaScript on the Cloudflare edges. So yeah, I mean, as a person who wants to get a job or anything, JavaScript is like very popular in the industry right now. And yeah, it works just awesomely. Another thing is what a lot of developers who code in JavaScript don't really talk about, but I want to show you why you should not choose JavaScript in 2020. First of all, just remember that JavaScript does not offer multi-threaded support. That means your JavaScript would always be running in a single thread. So if you have some sort of requirement for multi-threading, or I don't know, if you need some sort of thing which requires multi-threaded, then that's not really possible in JavaScript. Number two is, which could be a derivative of the first point, that is, if you have computationally intensive work. For example, threads allow you to do a lot of work in parallel, but that is not really possible with JavaScript. You have to launch a whole another process instead of like launching a bunch of threads. So computational intensive work is not for JavaScript. JavaScript is mainly used for for aggressive input output. Like for example, HTTP servers are very well suited for JavaScript. That is for Node.js. But if on the other hand, if you have a lot of computational work, for example, like video rendering or parsing JSON or anything, for that stuff, JavaScript won't be the most optimal language because, just like I said, it works on a single thread. And let's face it, I mean, V8, which is one of the runtimes of JavaScript, which is the underlying engine of JavaScript, can actually be very huge, right? So the code base of V8 is very huge. There are millions of lines in the code base. So if you're writing some sort of production critical application where you cannot really afford any bugs at all, then V8 is kind of a black box. Chromium is a black box kind of thing for you because of the huge code base and a lot of open tickets, open issues. So there's that. And because V8 is huge, that is, it's huge in size and performance and everything, it's not really best for embedded because you have different engines, different underlying engines as well for embedded devices, which are less memory aggressive, less memory eating, but they then suffer the performance aspect. So JavaScript is usually frowned upon when you really talk it about, using it in smaller devices like IoT based devices. But yeah, that's one of the things you should keep in mind. And one of the things which a lot of people point out as well is that the ecosystem, the package ecosystem of JavaScript is polluted. That means that there are a lot of one-liner packages. There are a lot of packages which basically are broken or are not maintained and everything. So personally, I have not really felt that way once you hit that level, that if you can understand which package is working, which package is not working, you can for the most part see that your project is not using any deprecated package or any package which is not maintained. But yeah, I mean, this problem exists because there are issues which pop up all the time with JavaScript ecosystem, that somebody deleted the package and the whole chain of npm broke. So stuff like this happens. So yeah, this could be like one of the reasons as well, if you're too sensitive for for that, all that stuff. So yeah, the main question is that should you choose JavaScript in 2020? And I would actually say yes, you should go ahead and work with JavaScript. But if you have any reason in the no slide which I showed earlier, if you do not have any reason rather, then the answer is default yes. I mean, if you cannot really relate with all the defects I shown earlier, then the answer is yes, you should go ahead and learn JavaScript in 2020. Again, mastering JavaScript takes a bunch of things, and for this presentation for you guys, I have actually broken it down into 5 main things I think that you as an individual can start, even if you're a beginner, even if you're someone who has never done JavaScript before, right? So I'll be going over through all these 5 things, starting off with syntax awareness. I'll be covering feature awareness, logic, toolkit, and experience. So these are the 5 things basically which I personally think that is like important for you to at least go down that road of mastering JavaScript. Syntax, feature, logic, toolkit, and experience. So let's see what all of these mean individually, and let's see what happens with every single point here. Starting off with syntax awareness, let's cover the meta aspect of this, like what it means and all that stuff. And for me, I believe from a independent point of view as well, syntax awareness is something which is easy to grab, which is easy to get, right? What does this include? It includes JavaScript basics, data types, and language patterns. I can say that you should have a clear understanding of how the data types work, how many data types there are in JavaScript, objects, booleans, integers, floating. Well, JavaScript does not really have a distinction between that, but you should know that JavaScript uses IEEE 754 under the hood to store integers. There's just a single pattern, the maximum limit of numbers. So you should have all that information on your hand. You should also be able to debug your small parts of programs. You should have the knowledge how to debug something, right? So you should have that particular, the information with you, that you can use Chrome Dev Tools, you can use debugger, you can use all those various sorts of techniques to actually help you debugging. Like console logging is also one of the popular ways people actually debug stuff. But yeah, I mean, this is something I would put in syntax awareness, although it does not really make a lot of sense with syntax as a keyword. But yeah, this can go in syntax awareness. Also, working with right tools is one of the great things you can do to yourself, which could chip away a lot of months, even years in some case. And that is like choosing a right set of tools, right? VS Code is a good text editor. DevTools, of course, just choose Chrome or Firefox, any one of them. And yeah, I mean, just go ahead and choose. Just make sure you have right tools at your disposal, right resources. I just made this presentation in such a way because a lot of people last time asked me that they actually showed me about the screenshots and everything for each slide. So I would just add a little bit of delay if you want to take a screenshot, maybe discuss it later on the Discord group. That would be something you can do with this little screenshot time. So the what part. In the last slide, we covered the meta part. In this slide, let's just cover the what part. What goes in the syntax awareness learnings. So what I expect a beginner or anyone to complete this one of the 5 points, that is one of the 20% of the thing which I'm saying is scoping strings, that implicit explicit type conversion which is in JavaScript, functions. So basically I'll just show you that. You can just take a good look at here, and these are some of the topics I believe are important as a beginner as well. So if you're starting off with JavaScript, you can basically start learning these things, right? So obviously you can pick up a playlist and everything, but when you're done, make sure that you know about these things, these little things as well. If you have missed anything, just separately Google it or search it on YouTube, do whatever you want. But yeah, you can do this. So the how part, how do you do it, right? Learn it with resources. I'll just show you how you can learn it. Video courses, blogs, practicing. There's a reason I highlighted practicing. Practicing is super important. You're gonna see this all the time in the slide, as well as you're gonna hear it from everyone who knows a little bit about JavaScript and basically any other computer science language or anything. Practicing is actually the only way to learn the real world skills. Free resources includes Codedam's learning path for JavaScript. It's not live yet, but I'm still working on the learning path. But there would be a dedicated section on mastering JavaScript on codedam.com/learning paths. That is codedam.com/learning-path, where you could actually be able to see the exact learning path which you can follow to learn that. Apart from that, I would highly recommend you to check out Free Code Camp as well. They have like some of the best challenges, some of the best hands-on practice with JavaScript. So Free Code Camp is a good resource. Then we have Mozilla Developer Networks. They have beautiful articles and beautiful guides. So you can basically, if you are a person who does not really watch a lot of videos, or maybe you just read stuff a lot, MDN is the way to go. And finally, you have YouTube for all sorts of other things which are missing in your learning. So if you followed some course or anything and you see that a particular topic has not been covered, you can always use YouTube to go back to that topic, learn that stuff, and fill the void, right? Then I would say at this point, I won't really recommend any paid solutions, because this part is easy, right? So if you're trying to opt in for Codedam Lead Plan or Udemy or any other course which is paid, I would say hang on a little, do some research, because a lot of good free resources, including content on Codedam from other creators, is free for the beginning part, right? So for the syntax awareness, that is basic topics, wait, do not opt in for anything which is paid. Free courses are available, free material is available. So make sure you do a little bit of research. And small projects are going to help you a lot. I mean, when I started off myself, what I did, which eventually got me to every other step on the ladder, was I created a lot of small projects. They do not have to be big. They do not have to consist of some humongous code base or anything like that. Make small games, make small websites, about me page, anything which you think is something which you want to create. It could be some sort of game you would have imagined like a week ago or anything. Create small projects. They have to be your own. That is, like, don't really copy small projects, don't really get inspiration from others, but yeah, just go ahead and think about a little bit of ideas here and there and create them. That really helps you to boost your confidence. That really helps you to boost your motivation, stuff like that. Again, we have a little bit of screenshot time, and we can go ahead. You can go ahead and take a screenshot if you want to save this. Next thing is feature awareness. We did the syntax awareness part. Feature awareness actually means that you know a little bit about the underlying language. So syntax awareness is kind of like the overview of the ocean, right? Now it's time to dive in a little bit. You want to get into the language, you want to get into the ecosystem, you want to know how things really work in JavaScript, how you can make the most out of it. So this is the stage for that. You want to cover intermediate JavaScript concepts here, like you want to make up your mind how to work with complicated things, how to read complicated code. Like reading people's code is one of the best skills you can have. A lot of people can really code their own things, but they kind of get lost when they see some other code, right? So that is something which would come when you work a lot with JavaScript. In this part, I want you to mix theory and practical as well. So whatever you are learning from videos, contents here and there, try to build up stuff simultaneously. And at this point, you can actually build good stuff, right? So you can actually build things which are actually used by people on some sort of scale. Like you can have a GitHub repo, have some sort of project which you can share with other people, where people can actually interact with your thing and review it. So you want to do that. Then I want to cover what JavaScript has to offer, more like the core concepts in this feature awareness part as well. And yeah, let's just go and check that what part. So the what part in the feature awareness actually covers the following topics. So I would want to, let's just go ahead and there we have it, right? So I would want you to have a good look on this. I won't really recommend the last 2 points. Like you can leave cluster mode, web workers, microtask, macrotask, event loop, this stuff. But for the most part, I want you to be aware about the rest of the things. Promises in JavaScript, one of the most important things. Callbacks, one of the backbones of JavaScript on which it was born and built. DOM API is very important. If you're a front-end developer, you have to know about all the, the common DOM APIs at least. Document.getElementById, document.querySelector, stuff like that, right? So this is something important. Asynchronous JavaScript, you should know about all those stuff, like which APIs are synchronous, which APIs are asynchronous, why are some APIs synchronous, some API are asynchronous. You're gonna see that JSON.parse might get a lot heavy sometimes, but it is synchronous. Now the reason it is synchronous is because parsing JSON is mostly CPU work, and it's if you just try to make it asynchronous, it does not really give you a lot of benefits on the CPU, right? Because you have to spend that time anyway. So just figure out some things about async nature of JavaScript, figure out how JavaScript's prototypal inheritance model works, how it is implemented, all that stuff. Events is a big thing in JavaScript, like the event dispatching and all that event-based model on which JavaScript is built on. So basically, all sort of interaction which you do as a user with a front-end app is in one form or another an event which is dispatched by JavaScript to your code. Look at some data structures in JavaScript. There are maps, sets, weak maps, stuff like that. This is usually used mostly on performance intensive things, but for the most part you can get away with objects and arrays, right? So for the most part you're gonna get away with objects, arrays, strings, numbers, booleans, stuff like that. You should know about a little bit about the edge cases for null and undefined and void and stuff like that as well. But yeah, for the most part this should be fine. Then regular expressions, ES6 plus APIs, very important. Fetch APIs, fetch API is like just eases your life a lot. Back in the days you actually have to use that whole snippet of writing an XML HTTP request, and that was like very tiring. So learn about these APIs which actually improve your workflow, right? This would actually help you write better code, readable code, and more maintainable code, honestly. Then I just really threw in cluster mode and web workers just for people who are actually on the intermediate side right now, on the intermediate part, but they want to become someone who's much better with JavaScript. So learn about what is cluster mode in Node.js, what are web workers in JavaScript, how you can make the best out of all the cores running on your CPU, all the cores running on your system. That is possible using running Node a lot of times on every core. So learn about stuff like that. The closer you get to system, and Node and JavaScript in general, the more, I would say, advanced you are considered in the industry. Learn about microtask use, macro task use, how the event loop works in general. Again, for intermediate guys who want to become advanced developers, not really required a lot on the beginning. So I won't say really just if you're a beginner or anything, just go ahead and dive into microtask use or anything. But yeah, if you have a decent understanding of JavaScript, if you want to take it to next level, if you really want to understand how the architecture actually works, how the set timeout works, how the promises are resolved, how the request animation frame works, how you can schedule your own things on microtask queues, stuff like that, learn about it. Learn about event loop, learn about everything. It is available, it is there on the internet. You just have to find it, you just have to Google it, you just have to search on YouTube. Everything is available, right? The how part again. So how do you find about these features? Well, first thing first, what you don't know, you don't know, right? So I can talk all about features and everything, but the truth is, if you don't know something, you don't know how to find it. So the first thing to do is to actually solve problems from other sites which involve a particular language, in this case JavaScript, right? When you do that, and when you see other solutions, people solving the problems in their own way, like people, there are challenges on Codedam and FreeCodeCamp. So if you take a look there, you're gonna see you do a particular problem in one way, some people do a particular problem in some other way. So if you take a look there, what you're gonna observe is that a lot of people actually can teach you a lot from their code themselves, right? So if you take a look at how people solve problems, that is one way to become aware about features which are available but you never knew about them. Another way is, which I probably think I did not really mention here, is by just going to sites like GitHub and seeing some of your favorite projects or small plugins, how they write code. So reading other people's code is one of the ways to become aware about a certain feature. Then use resources like FreeCodeCamp, Codedam Labs, Code Labs, which actually give you challenges on the screen to do, which probably might make you Google about a particular thing, which might unreveal a particular feature you did not know about the language, right? Similarly, for FreeCodeCamp, there are a ton of sweet labs, ton of sweet certificates you can earn there. And there are sites like FreeCodeCamp as well, which offer questions and stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, I think you should be good enough with any one of these. Then personal projects is one of the best ways, I would say, because when you build something yourself, you actually Google how to do something. How do I implement this feature? How do I implement that feature? And when you Google a lot, you arrive at a lot of questions, and you just see that how other people are answering some of the questions on internet, right? If you go to Stack Overflow, you're going to learn a lot about how other people ask question, what they ask actually, and what other people answer. So that would be one way to actually learn about features, right? Then I would say Twitter, MDN, stuff like that is actually one good way to stay in the loop, right? So this is important because a lot of times you might miss some performance improvements or some feature which is added to the language or anything. And if you want to stay on the top, stay in the loop, just make sure you follow some of the people on Twitter. I think I did not really mention it here, but yeah, I mean, once you are on Twitter, you're gonna get an idea by seeing that, engineers who are working with the Google Chrome dev tools, or maybe who are working with Google Chrome internal teams, Chromium, you can follow them. They usually post on updates which are released in Canary, which includes a bunch of JavaScript features. So yeah, just be aware, right? That's all it takes. Again, a little bit of delay for the screenshot part, and here we go. The thing I want to discuss here is the most is the logic awareness, right? So this part is something which bugs a lot of people, honestly. So a lot of people complain to me that you know about the JavaScript syntax, and you know about the tools and everything which is available, but how do you do things? I mean, how do you approach a certain problem in JavaScript? If you get a question, how do you just think about that? What should you write on the keyboard, right? What should be your first statements, or what should you do really? So this again, this is the meta part which I just said, how to approach a new problem. One thing I have observed over the time is that if you can come up with a solution, you're gonna see that some people are going to think very hard and come up with a complicated solution. But the people who actually know their stuff, who actually know what they are doing, they usually come up with a much easier approach, right? For the most part. So that's what it is, that you're gonna think a lot. Sometimes you're gonna come up with a solution, you're gonna just implement this, and 2 days later you're gonna see somebody on the internet solved it in a much easier way than your way, right? So this is the part. A lot of times people get discouraged that, you know, he was able to think, or she was able to think about that particular solution in a much easier way, and I was not able to do that. The point you have to remember is thinking easy solution is actually hard, and thinking a hard, complicated solution is actually easy, because you just have to you know, just put all your energy into thinking a hard solution. But for easy solution, you need to have that experience. You need to have probably seen that problem somewhere before, or maybe you have already have that experience of doing it the hard way and the wrong way. So thinking easy is usually hard. That's what I want to convey the message as. Again, just if you have done something, if you have implemented a feature, a sort of algorithm or anything, don't just stop there. Question your logic, question yourself whether this can be improved. Is it the best thing possible? Is it the best solution possible? Even though if you have solved a particular problem in your code, if you have time on hand, I would recommend Googling about that. A lot of times you can actually see some of the best practices for that thing, or some of the best solutions as well, as a matter of fact, right? So questioning yourself is very important. And yeah, one last thing, experience is not really magic, right? So it comes with time. It actually takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of time eventually to actually get to a particular point where you can start solving problems pretty easily. So yeah, I mean, that's what I would say. Experience is not magic. It would actually come with time, so you don't have to force it. Just go with the flow. Again, screenshot time for the people who want to discuss it later on. But yeah, if you do not want to, it's fine. All right, so let's just take up a really quick question. This is something you have on the screen, and you want to create a sort of a cyclic redirect. So for example, the first visitor should be redirected to the link 1, the second one should be redirected to link 2, and so on. When you have the fifth visitor, the visitor should be redirected to link 5, link 1. That is, like, you know, cycling over all the way back from link 4 to link 1. So how would you try to approach that? How would you try to you know, just go ahead and think about this? If you are a new programmer, you might get caught up in a weird logic or anything. Like, I don't know, how would you even approach it? As a new person, you might think a lot about this problem. But the easy part is that you can actually, this is the line which you have to change. You can actually just go ahead and use a very simple solution like this, right? So this won't really come, I would say it might come naturally to you, but this might become very easy when you have done this problem, at least, number one. Number two, when you have a little bit of experience with working with arrays and stuff like that. So, you know, this sort of things actually builds when you have worked with stuff. But once you have done this, once you are here, don't let it fool you that this might be the best thing. Just like I said, you have to question your solution. You have to question your logic for the most part, because that is like a sure shot way to actually grow as a developer as well. So some of the questions you can ask here are, that is there any way this could happen, if this could get you in a race condition or anything, right? Because you might have a lot of people coming in on a same endpoint. So is this possible that there could be a race condition on this thing? Is it possible to have an integer overflow right here? Like, if it is possible to have an integer overflow, what should be the largest possible number in JavaScript? You should know that. Then you're gonna figure out that JavaScript actually operates on IEEE 754 standard for the numbers, and you're gonna see that, oh, it's about 2 raised to the power of 53 or something. I don't really exactly remember what's the number, but yeah, that's it, I guess. But yeah, and you're gonna ask about, obviously, if this is the best performance possible for this particular redirect or whatever. And one last thing is, you don't really want to optimize your code a lot beforehand, before you're actually building stuff. So especially the logic as well, because that's the place where a lot of people get caught up. That is, like, they try to improve the logic again and again, and mostly try to improve everything. This is not competitive programming. This is not DSA. This is not something where you have only a single second, although it is always a best practice to go with the best possible approach. But make sure in the real world you place readability and code maintenance a little bit above the actual performance. Even if you get a little bit of performance hit, I would say leave that part for the compilers, for the virtual machines, for all that sort of stuff to optimize. This is not your job, right? Your job is to write good code, and if you write good code good enough, you're gonna see that your compilers and all that stuff will actually take care of the rest. You don't have to really write those hacky stuff and just extracting every last single ounce of performance from your server. That's not really required, at least in the beginning stage. So make sure you place your logic as clean as you can, as flat as you can on the table, and you should be good enough. So first things first, about the logic awareness part, which I think is important to put out, is that nobody really can build your logic, but only you, right? So if you have a course on internet which says buy this course and you're gonna have a good logic building, that's probably not a good course, right? Because it depends 100% on experience, on your practice, on all that stuff, on the projects and everything. So experience cannot be really bought. It would come naturally, it would come from practice, and you have to do projects for that. You have to practice on sites like, just like I mentioned, Free Code Camp is a good one. There's also a site, you can use also sites like LeetCode, which are, for the most part, they are for the data structures and algorithms, but you can use these sites to build up your logic awareness as well. And why is that possible? Because on these sites, you're going to find a lot of constraints, sometimes a lot of things which you have to follow in order, which would actually force you to think in a particular way, right? So initially, if you're someone who has no idea about logic or anything, like you cannot really think about how to approach a problem, these sites are a good approach to get started. So that's what I would recommend. Then the next section is the toolkit awareness, right? So the toolkit awareness, by that what I mean is that you actually have to know your tools, right? So you actually have to know what you use with JavaScript. So what you want to do is you want to get the best tools for you. You want to get the best available plugins, or the best available scripts, or whatever, the best available information with you, because tools actually help you to speed your development flow by a lot, right? You're gonna see a massive difference when you start working with some good tools like Webpack or Babel or Rollup, or any sort of tool which actually increases your productivity, because now you do not have to worry about a massive chunk of performance or bundling or whatever it is. So awareness about tools is very important as well. Again, this is something which is not only important but also recommended, because a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, a lot of startups actually use them all the time, because you don't really want to reinvent the wheel. So that is why you want to make sure that you have access to these tools. You have access to the knowledge for these tools for the most part. Then again, these tools really have real world requirements. So they are used in production, they are used in development. So you want to know about that. The what part of the tool would be obviously starting off with just pick any one, any framework, any library after React, Angular, Vue, which is like a standard thing now in the industry because mostly everyone uses that, chooses that. So yeah, just pick one, stick with it, and you should be good enough. Then there are bundlers like Webpack Rollup. There are transpilers like Babel. So you want to at least learn about the configuration part as well, which are like basically complement your JavaScript thing, because then you do not have to worry about like supporting multiple browsers, for example, all the way down to IE 11 or 10 or 9 or whatever. So Babel would take care of that. You just have to focus on the right code, the good code. Prettier is also one of the important tools I think you should know about. So there's that. Then we have VS Code, NPM, TypeScript. So these are not really, I won't really say tools exactly, but these are some of the things you should know about. So yeah, I mean, just make sure you are aware about there's a runtime like TypeScript, which actually helps you to write much better code in JavaScript, which would be typed, which would have the static safety features of languages from C, C++, at the same time have the flexibility of writing your regular JavaScript, right? So these are some of the things you should be aware about. Then there are tools like NodeMon, AutoPrefixer, GraphQL, technologies. You can also call them technologies, but yeah, these are something you should be aware about as you're learning, as you're proceeding towards a great JavaScript developer, right? So it's becoming a good JavaScript developer, honestly, is not just becoming very good in JavaScript alone, because that's not really possible for the most part. You're gonna have to work with a little bit of tools here and there as well simultaneously to be a good developer, right? To be someone who can actually provide real value to the end company or the end user or the end startup or whatever is at the other end. Then there are stuff like Express, JWT, WebSockets. These are just some meta topics I came up with, but yeah, I mean, just make sure you have a grasp on what is available in the industry as a whole. You have information, you have some knowledge on like these things exist and you can work with them using JavaScript. So yeah, I mean, Puppeteer and Cypress are two good tools to actually simulate a whole browser in Node.js and you know, just interact with any website, any web page like you would do normally, but without a browser and using code. So you can control your browser using code, using these tools. So just be aware about your tools. They are also used in unit testing and stuff, end-to-end testing to be precise. But yeah, that's for the most part. So the how do you approach these tools? The first thing is whatever I told you in the last slide, just take a look at that and build your next project using these tools, right? Build your projects by trying to incorporate Webpack, Babel, AutoPrefixer, stuff like that. Even though if your project is complete, you can just take up one of the completed projects, which you have already done, and try to incorporate these things, try to incorporate these technologies into your projects. Because when you do that, you're going to understand that if you try to scale up this project now, or if you try to you know, I don't know, just improve or release the next version of this project, you're gonna see that it's much easier, it's much convenient for you to actually go ahead and do that this time, right? So yeah, like building with a lot of tools is a good way to go. Next thing is stop reinventing the wheel, because you know, you don't really want to waste a lot of time honestly in doing something which is already done. Now this does not really mean that you should stop looking for projects, or you know, you should stop you should just think about unique ideas. Just make sure you understand the context of this thing. If you're an intermediate developer, if you're someone who can write some tools, that does not really mean you should, if there's an exact solution available. If you're learning, if you're doing it for the learning part, that's fine, but try to look for tools which are community supported. Try to look for tools which are already available, and yeah, I mean, do not really reinvent the wheel and do all that stuff again which is already available. However, I mean, invent better wheels if you can, because if that is not really what you do, then there would be just a single software for every single thing, right? So you have Webpack and Rollup as competitors, sort of. But yeah, I mean, you want to invent new tools if needed. And then about tools, how to learn Webpack, how to learn NPM, how to learn TypeScript, stuff like that. Use YouTube. You have tons of playlists available there. Use Codedamn learning paths. You have a lot of courses there as well. Use Googling, use just regular articles. Just try to Google them. Take a look on what other people had to say. And yeah, I mean, there are resources for toolkits on JavaScript toolkits as well. Again, it's a screenshot time, so you can just save this if you want to discuss it later on in the Discord. So here we go. Next thing is experience building, and honestly, there's not a lot to say in this section because experience only comes with time, and honestly, it does not mean that it would 100% come with time, right? So what that statement means is that you have to actively put in the work as well with the time. If you just sit around, if you do not a lot of work, if you do not do a lot of learning time, if you do not spend a lot of learning time on yourself, you're just passing time, right? You cannot really build that good thing. You cannot really build that experience if you do not work all along. And by working, I mean consuming content, working on your side projects, working on small projects, just making sure that you're doing something every day, right? It's not like you just have to pick up coding once a week and then 6 months or 1 year down the line you think that you are experienced with JavaScript. That's not really how it works. So just time is the greatest knowledge barrier, which I just say here, is because you cannot really beat a person who's truly 6 months ahead of you in terms of pure knowledge, right? You really need, you might chip away a few months if you have a good IQ. You might chip away a few weeks even more if you have, good learning capacity. But trust me, you cannot really beat a person who is really 6, 7, 8, 9 months ahead of you in terms of knowledge, which can be only gathered in that particular time, right? So that is a barrier which you can create for others who want to become better than you, right? So as to put it. So if you're working in an organization or anything, and if you want to upskill yourself, give yourself a lot of time, create that time barrier, and it is like, it cannot be jumped over, right? You have to go through that barrier as an individual to cross it. Patience is the key. I mean, yeah, a lot of people get frustrated on their first, second, third, fourth month of programming, but that is not how it works. I mean, that is literally not how any skill works at all. If you want to become a master, if you want to become a very good developer, you have to be patient when you're putting in the work. You won't get results all the time, you won't get success all the time, but having patience to just move on, just move on to the next thing, just go ahead and just ignore that failure for a while and get that energy back, get that enthusiasm back is the thing, right? And playing the long game is like the fundamental objective that you should have. You should not be playing a 3-week game that you should be master in JavaScript in 3 weeks. You should be playing the long game that you have to get that job, or maybe you have to become a great developer who can deploy that kind of application in about 6 months, or in about 1 year, or in about 2 years. But make sure you back this long game with your day-to-day work as well. I mean, it is of no use that if you have a very long goal in mind, but you just lack the day-to-day motivation, and you are just watching Netflix the whole day, and you are not really putting in the work, putting in the effort, because long game would not really work if you're not putting in the effort in the short term, right? So, yeah. And yeah, I mean, not really giving up and keeping yourself healthy is like the most common thing one could say. But I think it's important to say, right? So yeah, so a lot of people actually ask me about what projects they should build as well for the learning, for the building experience. Like, how do you really build experience? I have told you that you have to build experience. You can only build experience when you're learning, when you're actually building stuff. But what exactly should you really build? First thing is start cloning popular sites and features. If you have no idea whatsoever in mind, I would say just go ahead and take a look at Instagram's desktop version or maybe WhatsApp web. See how these giants actually use the day-to-day things which we discussed with JavaScript. So if you go to WhatsApp web, you're gonna see they make use of WebSockets using cryptography to transfer messages from your mobile and back. Now there won't be really the open source version of the backend for WhatsApp, but try to think about how you can implement something like that, like creating an application for mobile. Now you might skip that if you want, but connecting it somehow with a QR code on the website, which opens your whole WhatsApp interface on your desktop, and you just need internet access. I mean, it's an interesting problem even to think about, right? We can have a whole session on how you can build, or at least how you can approach a product, a thing like WhatsApp web. So go ahead, make sure you just go ahead and explore sites like Instagram, WhatsApp web, some of the things which you might find interesting, and see if you can create a clone of them in terms of sites or maybe in terms of small features. I mean, you do not really have to clone the whole thing. If you're just learning, for example, front-end development, you can just go ahead and clone the UI of WhatsApp web. They have their UI in React, so if that helps. But yeah, if you are trying to get into backend development, you might want to clone the WhatsApp architecture, how they work, how they connect the WebSockets, how the QR system works. Why do you think they expire the QR code after a bunch of seconds? You might want to wonder about that. You know, ask questions to yourself, why that particular thing is working the way it is working, right? So you have to do a lot of questioning. You have to do a lot of thinking, seeing what features you can implement, what features you think you can implement, but you don't really know how to do that. Google about them. This is how you create real projects. Then another point is that come up with something you wish to do using code. And honestly, this is like my favorite point, because what I used to do when I was learning code is that I would usually think about little applications like a game. Like my first game was a stone paper scissors game with JavaScript, and I still remember it. I did it with jQuery, and I learned a lot about a lot of things while making that thing, right? So that was not really, obviously not an original idea, but that was my idea, right? So I did not really copied anything or anybody, but I tried to create it myself. So come up with something you wish to do using code. Honestly, this is something I think should be the goal when you actually take up coding itself, right? So you want to learn coding when you want to really build something from that, because that is what it is all about. I mean, today we are watching this live, you're watching this live on your devices and everything. All this technology is working because we wanted to build something. Now the reason might be like we want a swift communication or anything, but yeah, I mean, the motive of developing, the motive of coming up with everything which we do with code is to actually build stuff. So that's the fundamental thing you can do. Come up with something you want to build using code. Why are you coding? Why are you actually learning to code? That salary and getting a job, getting that internship is a secondary thing, right? The first thinking should be, why are you even learning to code? So think about that, think about what you want to learn, think about what you want to build, and just go ahead and build that. Another thing which I personally used as well, and I can recommend a lot of people for doing that, is taking up freelance work. This is an actual interesting approach, and the way this works is that you can actually earn money, as well as you can actually get exposed to a lot of projects as well, which honestly might be out of your league as well if you're working all by yourself. So taking a freelance work on Fiverr, Upwork, sites like these would actually help you earn some money as well, as well as, you know, just take a look at how you can work with other code bases, how you can build some usable products, usable projects which can be deployed on production from the scratch. So the freelance work kind of would help you to work on your knowledge as well as on some money. So that's mostly a win-win. I mean, for the most part, I did freelancing work on Fiverr for 2 or 3 years, and yeah, I mean, I learned a lot of things there. I learned a lot by working on other people's code and everything. So that really helps. And finally, if you are out of inspirations, like you need to get ideas, you need to get that inspiration, you can always ask out on the Discord group. You can always ask people on Twitter about the ideas, about what you should do next, about what they are doing at the moment. Maybe you can also find a partner who can do pair programming with you. Stuff like that actually happens a lot. So if you're not on the CodeDan Discord group, I would highly recommend you to join that. We try to discuss a lot of things there. We actually discuss a lot of projects as well. So yeah, that's for the most part for the project building. Now, there's this thing called experience graph, which I came up with just a couple of hours ago. And honestly, I'm not very good with graphs and everything, but I think I did my best here. So what I want to highlight using this image, you can see, is that the area under the curve you see is actually the experience you want to become, to hit that particular expertise or whatever, right? So you need that particular experience anyway. It does not matter how fast you go or how slow you go, you're gonna acquire that. But the thing is, a lot of people, what I see is they try to go way too fast. They try to cover everything in a single day or anything. Now what that turns out to be is that they actually stress themselves to a certain point where they feel bad about themselves, or maybe where they lose the hope, right? So you want, now that area of stress would be actually different for every single person, right? So it won't be same for you, it won't be same for the person sitting next to you. So you have to figure that out, what sort of work and what sort of commitment you are willing to put per day or per week or whatever it is for you, which works fine, into this particular chart, right? So you want to make sure you are under the stress area. You don't want to really stress a lot about just learning part, but at the same time you do not want to be a lot calm as well, where you would take a lot of time to master it, because when you do that, you actually start losing the skill from the back, and you have to revisit stuff, the stuff is getting changed, stuff like that happens. So make sure you do not really stress out yourself, but at the same time make sure you have a nice speed for yourself, because the experience you need is going to be there, right? So it's not going to change how much work you need to put in. You just have to distribute it yourself. But the question is how much time you should actually take to become an expert as a whole, right? So I told you about don't really stress a lot and all that stuff, but the main question is how much time would it really take you to become that particular expert in the field? Now this is a graph I love, and this is absolutely true as well. I mean, tried and tested true, you can think of, right? So what this graph tells you is that people, when they start off with something which they don't really know about, they would eventually hit that point where they think they know about it the best, right? This is kind of like inevitable thing, I would say. Most of the people would experience this, but you have to understand that once you start learning more and more about how much you don't know, you're gonna realize that there are people who are much better than you, and you have a lot to learn at this point as well. And you're gonna just come on that slope of enlightenment some way around, I'll just discuss the time frame, but yeah, once you are there, it's a good place to be in. So you want to get over that peak of Mount Stupidity as soon as you can, and you can only do that by actually working every day. Because if you are there and if you stop working, you're gonna see that you are in a bad place now, because you don't really know a lot, and you don't even know that you don't even know that you don't know that you don't know, right? So it's kind of confusing, but that's what it is. So you don't want to be on the peak of Mount Stupidity a lot of time. You want to cover it as quickly as you can, and then there's a slope of enlightenment where you're gonna actually see that there's a lot you can learn, there's a lot to look forward for. And yeah, I mean, just like I said, it's a good place to be in. The way you can, the time frame which would actually take you for mastering JavaScript, for hitting that slope of enlightenment, would roughly be about 15 to 18 months. Now, anybody who says you master JavaScript in a single month is scamming you, to be honest, because you cannot build so many projects, you cannot build so much experience, you cannot build that in a single month. Experience comes with times, just like I said, and you cannot buy time, you cannot buy experience. It will come with your projects, your practicing, your brain seeing all those things again and again, and just registering them that you have already seen that. And yeah, it will take for a decent amount of time. This is a decent amount of time, 15 to 18 months. I would really recommend, if you're starting off with absolutely nothing, absolutely no knowledge in JavaScript, make sure you have a big picture in mind of like 18 months at least. So yeah, I mean, this is something I want to put out as something which you should know. So I would just quickly go ahead and list down some of the points which I think were some takeaways you can note down from the talk. First of all, understand why and if you need JavaScript at all, or coding at all, as a matter of fact. So once you have a reason for that, you should be, just good enough to at least have that motivation to start. Start with basics, pretty simple. Build something. That is what I have said always. Like, always try to build something in between of your things as well. Like, if you're working on something, if you're learning something, build something around it. If you're learning a concept, build an app or a website around it. It really helps you solidify that thing. Pick a framework library. Just like I said, React, Vue, Angular are your candidates for the most part. Stick with it for a while, because I see a lot of people switching really quick on React from Angular, because there are a lot of React jobs apparently. I don't know what really that means, but yeah, I mean, for the most part, there are jobs for every framework. That is the top 3 frameworks at least. So just make sure you stick with it. You make sure you understand, or maybe you like it. But yeah, I mean, if you don't really like it, feel free to switch, but give it some time. Like, a week is not enough. At least a month. Try it out for a month. See if you like it. If not, then make the switch. Again, build something. That's what I always want to say to new people who actually don't have a lot of experience, that building something would actually give you a lot of perspective. Discover the toolkit around your stack. This is important. Just like I said, I mentioned all those tools and everything. So make sure you are aware of the tools at least. I mean, even if you don't really use them, make sure you have those tools on your mind. Sometime you can go ahead and take a look what this was, what Mehul told about that in the live talk. But yeah, just make sure you have those listed down. Again, build something. Cannot really emphasize this enough. Now, once you are done with the intermediate, basic concepts, I would want you to come back to JavaScript basics again. Cover the advanced concepts this time, the internals and performance, stuff like that. Build something. Again, I'm just gonna keep repeating this till the end, because this is like the universal thing which needs to be just stamped right into your brain, right? You have to build something in order to learn things. Creating logic understanding would take time. Obviously, this is one of the things I mentioned. Finally, don't really beat yourself up if you are not making a lot of progress in a daily basis. You are making progress, trust me, if you are putting in the effort. That is all that is required. Everything else would be managed automatically when the time comes. Everything would just find the right place for itself. Feeling low, build something. Feeling good, build something. Like, yeah, I mean, this is like the most important part for the talk. and experience comes with time. So make sure you are not caught up in that game that you can learn something overnight. Nothing really happens overnight. Nothing good happens overnight. You cannot buy time really. So you have to spend that time with that tech. You have to spend that time. It will happen. You will have that feeling that you know JavaScript in a much better way now, but that would not happen overnight. Trust me, that is not going to happen. That would only happen when you put in enough hours, you put in enough work. It will happen one day, but that day won't be a decided day, right? It won't be like 25th of December or something. So yeah. And yeah, realize that mastering is not a destination. It's a journey, right? So you have to you don't really wake up one day and you're a master. You're never really a master, because there's always something which is left behind for you to learn. But you can consider that it's a journey where you become better and better as a developer as you proceed. So yeah, this is like one thing. And finally, again, build something, because that is like really, really important. And finally, I would say, if you have any questions for me, just go ahead and let me see if I can enable live chat. Go ahead and ask me that in the chat, and I'll try to make sure I answer your messages. So let's just go ahead and take some questions. And there we have it. So I think you should be able to see the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. Probably would take it for 15-20 minutes, and I have just enabled the chat, so you might want to just take a look there. So the slow mode is on, so make sure you write your whole question first and then send it, because I think it just allows you to send one message for a minute, in 1 minute. Shenru asks me, please give lead plan. You can get lead plan for free if you are the most active member in our Discord group. So yeah, I mean, I think Jatin is #1 in the Discord group. If you are in the stream, just let me know. Thank you, Devansh. What is the best way to overcome imposter syndrome? I think the best way to overcome imposter syndrome is to actually have something which backs up your skills, right? So for the most part, what would happen with you is that you'll get that feeling that you don't really know a lot, but you are in that position, right? Or you have that responsibility. So my #1 recommendation for that is to, just to make sure that you prove yourself wrong, is to have something which backs your skill up. Again, that means you have some very good projects, not the regular projects. That's like you have to do anyway. But if you have some very good projects, some very good things which you have built in the past, you have built, which is used by a lot of people, that really helps as a person as well to just build that confidence and build that thing in yourself. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, just have confidence on yourself. I mean, everybody sucks, right? Everybody is not really a master. Everybody, for the most part, every person who's learning programming, 99% people who are learning JavaScript are at initial state. So if you feel that you are not really that good enough, or if you're not well enough for that particular thing, just try to upgrade yourself, right? If you feel like that, just try to upgrade yourself. You're gonna see that you already know that. That's good. If you know that, build something which backs it up, right? Build something which the community can actually see. So yeah, that's my answer. So sometimes I'm not able to focus on what I'm working on, like currently working on Angular, but cannot focus on it and want to learn other frameworks like React. Okay, so like, I mean, if you want to learn React with Angular, that is not something like which is frowned upon. So sure, you can work on React too while you're working with Angular. There are 24 hours in a day. If you can manage, it's fine. But for the most part, that is the recipe to be successful, is to actually go all into a single framework. I mean, like, at least in the JavaScript world, just sorting that noise out is very important, because JavaScript has a lot of frameworks coming out all the time. JavaScript has a lot of things going on all the time. So yeah, I mean, if you really want to be valuable and master, and master of one at least, just make sure you have all your focus on a single thing. It's easy to lose control in the JS ecosystem. But yeah, I mean, if you want to try out React, definitely go ahead, do that. Maybe that is something you might become the master of, right? So it maybe you might like React much more than Angular, and you'll never really know if you do not really try it. So yeah, go ahead, definitely. Thank you, Bhushan. What about Siri support in progressive web app? Do you mean Apple support? I don't really know how would you get Siri support in progressive web app. I'm active and my rank is about 16 or 17. Good for you. Can I pick Go for backend and JavaScript for frontend, or I should avoid this stunt? No, you should definitely not avoid this stunt. It is a good combination. But yeah, I mean, if you're picking Go for backend and JavaScript for frontend, you want to make sure that at least that's what I feel, is that if I'm working with two separate languages, I have to make that mental context switch every time I'm switching code bases. But one advantage I get using JavaScript is that I'm just consistently working with a single language, because a lot of times when I switch from JavaScript to, let's say, Java or C++, I would really just forget all those semicolons, and then I will have 100,000 warnings from compiler. So yeah, I mean, yeah, this is for the joke part, but on a serious note, just go ahead and pick up whatever stack works for you. I mean, everything works. Most of the combinations would work with JavaScript as front end and something on the back end. You just have to make sure that what works for you as an individual. Everything really works. Okay, let's see. Can I join Discord group? I would post the link in the description of the video. I think if somebody is from the Code Down Discord group, please add the link in the chat. But anyway, I would just add that in the description of the video as well after this video ends, so you can join from there. What can we do if current job not give chance to build with new tech? I'm pretty sure that your job does not take 24 hours a day, and as long as that is fine, I think you can build stuff. I mean, that's the answer, right? So you have to do job because you have to pay the bills and keep the home running, or do all those things which you want. But I mean, you have to sacrifice something, at least give up a couple of hours on sleep, or maybe stop watching that TV show or Netflix or whatever. Just make some time for your education, for your personal education, in this case your new tech which you want to experiment with, and do it. I mean, this is something which I think would a lot of people would ask as a problem, but honestly, the answer for this thing. You have to make some time for your own education. This is like very straightforward answer, to be honest, but this is the truth. So yeah, what to do if you feel burnout and how to overcome it? I think first of all, just like I showed in the chart, I think you're pushing yourself too hard. So first thing is, like, just assess yourself where you are as another individual who can consume a 10-hour content in a day and consume a 3-hour exercise in a day, does not really mean that you can do it as well. And it's not really bad. It's not a bad thing about you as an individual. So first of all, just assess that how how much extra effort you are putting, which is beyond your ability, because that is one of the reasons for burnout. Either you're not really enjoying what you do, or you are trying to put way too much, and you just burn yourself out. So you have that. If you have ever used a microphone or anything, you're gonna get that little bar which shows that you are in the green region, then you are in the yellow region, and then you are in the red region when you're way too loud. So you don't want to be in the red region all along, right? Burnout happens when you're in the red region for too long. A couple of just a couple of gains and coming back is fine, but for the most part, try to stay in the yellow region. That is the region where you are out of your comfort zone and you're learning stuff. But red region is dangerous. So just see where your red region lies, draw that line, and try to keep under that for the most part. Prerequisites in JavaScript to start React. I just have a basic understanding of DOM, how the DOM works, what is a DOM tree, because the core fundamental underlying thing about React is that it creates a virtual DOM for you, and it manages everything using a single virtual DOM. So you're gonna get the complete picture of React, what it does, if you understand why it does it. And you're going to understand that when you understand what DOM is, why not really why, but what DOM is, how it constructs the tree, how you as an individual work with DOM yourself, like creating those elements, removing elements from the live documents using JavaScript. This is something on the theoretical part, right? For the practical part, I would say the prerequisites you're going to need is try to create something which is created already in React, and just create it in the vanilla JS. And you're going to see that there's a lot of effort, there's a lot of work which is involved by just creating it in regular JavaScript. And React does a lot of heavy lifting for you. So this would actually give you a different perspective as well for the library, and you're going to appreciate what React brings on the table for you. So yeah, for the prerequisites part, I would say just have a little bit of understanding with DOM. You can always, just have a to and fro from the JavaScript world to the React world if you have missed any concept or anything. So yeah, you can do that for the most part. Thank you for your talk. It is so clear. The thing most important is what you repeat to practice and build things, and then you learn what you need. Absolutely. I mean, this is like something which a lot of people say, but I don't really think a lot of people follow themselves, because it's so common now to say that practicing and building stuff is the way to go, that it is now overlooked. So I really want to emphasize this, that this is in fact the right answer. I mean, you're gonna see most of the people, I mean all of the people, 100% people, nobody actually got to that particular level without building anything. That is just impossible. It does not really work that way. So yeah, that is something I wanted to put out. I just know about CSS and HTML. I think that is a start. You can go ahead and start working with JavaScript if you want, Lambda Boy. That's a nice name actually. So yeah, I mean, JavaScript does not really have any prerequisites of HTML and CSS, any major prerequisites to be precise. But yeah, you can go ahead and start working with JavaScript. It's fine. Thank you, Prateek. And let's see if we have any other question. Bro, I'm lacking motivation, need some tips. I mean, you have to have a goal in picture, right? So what do you wake up for? Like, you have to have something to achieve in mind. I mean, if you have just a purpose of going to a job or coming back, that kind of leads to a little bit of demotivation. That's what I feel, honestly. So try to link yourself to a bigger picture, a bigger motive, I would say. That would actually give you a reason to actually be motivated all the time, that you have to approach that particular thing, you have to approach that goal. So whether it's like becoming a JavaScript guru, or maybe setting your first JavaScript course, whatever it is, just pin down a far-fetched goal, and whenever you're motivated, just take a look there and see if that demotivation is actually helping you to achieve that. That really works for me, to be honest. For Angular, how much JS have to know, because there is already TypeScript also there, right? Yeah, so Angular for the most part works on TypeScript, so you have to know TypeScript. This is like one of the reasons I don't really recommend Angular to beginners, because you are exposed to TypeScript from day one. But yeah, I mean, if you have the stomach to digest it, it should be fine. And for your question, how much JS you have to know, I would say you just like React, you have to know the basics of JavaScript, right? Because Angular would seem a little bit friendly to you because it uses HTML templates and everything in a separate file. But yeah, the concepts remains the same. The DOM things, the APIs, JavaScript internal, not really internal, but JavaScript scoping and stuff, creating functions, data types, stuff like, force type casting, internal type casting, stuff like that. So you should be familiar with the basics. And just like I said, you can always hop to and fro between the Angular worlds and JavaScript worlds to just fill the voids if there are any. So yeah, it's not like you have to perfect your JavaScript in a single go and then move to Angular. That's not really how you should do it. When will be the backend course available on Codedamn? Pretty soon. Actually, I'm working on a Node.js course. That is like one part of the backend. But yeah, I mean, I am working for finding content creators for Python, because Python is honestly not my league. But yeah, I would want to have at least Node and Python as two choices in backend, which are like some popular solutions. So for the time, to be precise, I would say not exactly this month, because I would be focusing more on the advanced JavaScript courses. This month I have a couple of courses coming up on Codedamn, which would be released probably in a couple of weeks, or maybe by the next week. But yeah, for the backend, I think the next month, early first week should be a good estimate. Ryan Dahl create a Dino, which is new as JS backend. Should we learn this as a priority or as per market? Node.js is a good option for now. Node.js is definitely a good option because it has that work which has been done for 10-12 years. Node was launched back in, I don't really know the year, but it has been at least 12 or 15 years for Node. So it has that community, and it has those developers who have been working on it for that long. Dino is a new framework, is a new, not really framework, I always get that wrong. It's a new runtime in the town. So yeah, I mean, it could be big, it could not be big. I honestly don't know at this point, because I did a video on Dino and a lot of people just took it a little bit out of context, what I was trying to say. I don't really hate Dino. I just think that, Dino, honestly, something we need to give a lot time to right now. So it could go anyway, right? So there are a lot of good things as well with Dino, which Node can learn from. There are a lot of things which I feel personally are not so good as well with Dino, to be honest. So yeah, for your question, I would say right now in 2020, don't focus on Dino, honestly, from a professional career purpose, because it's new. Nobody right now, which of I know, is using that in production. I mean, they already have the version 1 out, but still, I think it's not a good choice to use in production right now, and at least until it matures a little bit more. But yeah, we'll see what happens in the future. So yeah, Node is definitely a good choice for now. Promises or async await? Async await is for the most part syntactic sugar over promises. I won't say the exact syntactic sugar, because I think I have read somewhere that V8 does some job under the hood, which is different in async await compared to promises. But yeah, async await is just a little nicer, synchronous looking alternative of promises. Promises versus async await versus XML HTTP request. Obviously, async await is number one, then promises. But if you want to support some older browser or some, I don't know, something which is legacy or something, then obviously you have nothing better than XML HTTP request, because it has been there from the first version of JavaScript. I can't concentrate even 1 hour for learning code and skipping daily learning how to become better in JavaScript. How much months would it take? First of all, just ask yourself, why can't you concentrate for 1 hour in a day? Because 1 hour is, to be honest, is not a lot, right? You just need to have that I don't really know what's the word I'm looking for, but you need to sit on a chair and you need to work. Like, a lot of people I see that they do not have that mentality, that they cannot sit in a single place and keep their head down and work. So try to figure out which distracts you, what is something which you cannot really control consciously, and try to find out a way to make sure that is away from you, whether it's your social media, whether it's your mobile phone, anything, gaming, stuff like that, and try to get it away for you for some time. Like, you can start with 1 hour 10 minutes a day, 1 hour 20 minutes the next day. Just go on, take a look what happens. And yeah, I mean, this is, for the most part, you have to solve yourself by asking right questions to yourself. So yeah. How to overcome with laziness while do code or upgrading skills? Set up deadlines for you. I mean, this is something I like to do myself. Set up deadlines for yourself, and actually I would say reward or punish yourself if you hit those deadlines or miss those deadlines, right? So I mean, this could vary from person to person, but what I do is that probably I would skip that I don't know, I would skip that particular Netflix show I'm watching for a week or for a couple of weeks if I'm not able to hit that deadline. So that kind of like creates a drive. I don't know if you want to follow this thing, but this kind of works because you are now tricking your brain into a what's the word I'm looking for, some sort of reward based system. I'm not really sure if that's the right word, but yeah, just create some sort of goal for yourself, and make sure you at least punish yourself if you do not hit that. If you don't want to reward yourself, that's fine. But yeah, this is one way to come up with laziness, to fix laziness. But yeah, if there's a deeper problem to laziness, that why you are actually lazy, then that's something you have to figure out. So yeah, just make sure you ask the right questions to yourself. What's the right time to start React? I think in about a minute. So yeah, in about a minute it would be a right time to start React. Yeah, to be honest, it is always the right time, right? So I don't really understood what you are asking. If you could be a little bit more specific, I would be happy to answer your question in an elaborative way. Okay, let's see what we have next. I have just started with web dev. I am working with Node and Angular and I like it. How is the scene in the industry? How long will they go on for? I'm a third year going on my fourth. The scene in the industry is pretty good, if you are asking about that. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna get a lot of opportunities with that tech stack. Angular and Node is a good option. So how long is this going to last? Honestly, I don't know. For at least I can bet on at least a couple of years, unless there's some revolutionary magic framework which comes out. But yeah, for the most part, I think Google is actively working on and maintaining Angular from their end. And a lot of companies use it, a lot of organizations use it for both their internal and external applications. So this is something which is here to stay. So yeah, if that answers your question. Angular 9 or React, which is more industry useful? This is the wrong question, to be honest. The right question should be like what you should learn, or actually this is also not a right question. The right question actually should be, the right thing should be to actually pick up any one of these, try it out and see if you like it or not as an individual. And if you do like it, just go all into that, learn more about that, build more stuff with that, because both of them are useful in the industry. Both have ample of opportunities. Both can be used to create production ready applications, solid production ready applications, which can handle a lot of users concurrently, parallelly, whatever. So yeah, just figure out what works for you, because Angular and React both work in the industry. Both are useful. Thank you, Omari. Santosh asks, I'm very passionate about coding. I work in a service-based company, not backend related. I want to grow as a backend developer. I'm developing my demo app. Will I get a salary drop? What do you mean by that last part? Um, if I understood your question right, you want to level up as a backend developer. So I don't really know what your skill set is for the backend part. So yeah, I'm just assuming some generic thing like Node or Python. But yeah, this would apply for the most part. So just like I said in the whole talk, if you want to grow something, grow your skill set, grow your profile, whatever it is, work on stuff, work on projects, work on things which you can be proud of. Now there's one thing to work on something to learn, and there's another thing to work on something you're proud of, right? I have learned a lot of things in the past by building small projects, but honestly, to be honest, I'm not really proud of all of them. Like some of them are very, very small or kiddish projects, and they don't really work. They don't really worked a lot in a much better sense as well. But yeah, if you want to grow as a developer, if you want to if you're at that level where you can build stuff and you want to grow as a developer, I would say start working on something which you're proud of. Like, something, it could be something useful to people which people use, or it could be something useful to you as an individual as well. So you can have some sort of in-house LMS system, some sort of way to take notes while watching YouTube videos, anything which you would use as an individual or other people would use. That would actually give you real world skills as well, level you up, and you would have a good profile as well. What is your favorite stack libraries for backend? I would say I go with TypeScript, Node, Express. Then for data validation, there's a library called JOI, which is something I like a lot. Yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's all which is required for coding up a decent backend. Then you have, those security related packages like Helmet, which helps you strengthen the security a little bit. If you get to databases, you get MongoDB, stuff like that. But yeah, for the most part, Node.js is fine as a language itself. Obviously built on top of, obviously used on top with TypeScript. So that should be a good combination for the most part. What about Vue? Everybody's talking about React. Vue is also a good option, Sean. Um, but the thing is that, again, it depends on you, what you want to learn, right? So Vue also has a good chunk of market with it. React also has a good chunk of market with it. A lot of guys like React, a lot of guys like Vue. It just depends on what you can really build with a particular tool, right? So yeah, I mean, it just boils down to, do you like Vue as an individual, or do you like React as an individual? And if you do like any one of them, just go ahead and learn that, and you would be able to build all the stuff which you build with React, with Vue, and vice versa. So yeah, I just came to the live stream. Can I still join and code? This stream would be available, so I would say that yeah, you can rewatch this if you want. And if you want to, like, if you have that perception of coding, I think you can join the Discord group, connect with some awesome people there, and we would take care of that. How to get developer? Oh, I think I lost that question. How to get developer job as a college dropout? I would say if you do not have a degree, you have a little bit of disadvantage over the companies which prefer that degree thing a lot. But to be honest, if you try to look for early stage companies or people who actually value real skills instead of CS degrees, and a lot of big companies do that as well these days, but yeah, for the most part, you have to bring value on the table, right? So you cannot just really know about JavaScript and React and Express and stuff like that and be done with it. You have to actually build, you have to bring value on the table for the other people, that you can go ahead and manage their product, or maybe you can go ahead and fix that particular thing for them. When you have that level of confidence, when you have that level of belief in yourself that you can be valuable to the other person, then obviously it becomes much easier to get a job as a college dropout. In fact, that does not even matter then, that you're a college dropout, as long as you can bring some value to the people. Is this time to move on Vue.js with Node.js? Is this the time? Why would this be the time? I mean, nothing really significant has happened in the JS ecosystem, so I won't say that if this is the time. However, it could be time for you to move on to Vue.js with Node.js if you're starting off. So yeah, I mean, that's what, that's what you're asking. Can you say something about front-end part in the microservices world? What would you want me to say about front-end part in the microservices architecture would usually be used on the back-end part? So just clarify that question a little bit for me, and I'll just take that up. Bro, any good books for front-end development in your perspective? Honestly, I don't really read books a lot, but yeah, I mean, if you want, you can go ahead, try searching for I think there's a book called You Don't Know JS, which I have heard a lot about. It's a good one, which helps you learn the weird parts of JavaScript as well. That's, at least that's what I've heard about, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, I mean, I don't really read books a lot, so I cannot really recommend you any. But yeah, I mean, there are people on YouTube and making courses and everything, so that's something, if you want to consider, you can go ahead and do that. But for the books part, obviously you can ask other people. There would be a lot of people who learn from books, and there would be people who would keep learning from them. Opinions on Django and Flask. They are good choices if you can work with them effectively, but again, just like I said, these Django, at least Django ships with a lot of stuff beforehand, right? So if you are someone who's starting off with Django with a completely clean slate, I would say it gets a little bit messy, to be honest, because Django tries to do a lot of things for you. So if you want to start with backend development in Python, I would say start with Flask. That's my view. Should I learn Node.js if I am working on Angular, because I know PHP as backend and people say PHP is not efficient in large scale projects? At least this is what is said in Pakistan. What's your thoughts? I would say that, yep, it is. It used to be true, to be honest. I'm actually out of touch with PHP for a long time now, but I have seen some advances in PHP as well. I think they shipped with a just-in-time compiler for PHP as well in PHP 7 or 8. I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, it's making progress. First things, number one. Number two is that you should learn Node.js if you're working with Angular, and if you have PHP on your side as well, because to be honest, PHP is something which are not a lot of new companies are using. So if you have that perspective in mind, that you want to join a new company or a new startup or whatever, I don't think a lot of new products which are coming out every day are using PHP, although it's not really dead or anything which people say. But yeah, you can go ahead and learn Node because it fits good with Angular, and you can transfer most of the knowledge as well. Is React Native for web a thing? Why aren't any good tutorials about it? Couldn't find anything good so far. I like the idea. Write once, run everywhere. It's definitely a thing. Honestly, I have not really tried it myself, but I have seen a bunch of projects which use that. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, the convention always has been to build for the web first and then, just transfer it to the mobile using React Native or Ionic or stuff like that. React Native web kind of tries to play it backwards. You creating an application for mobile and then it works on desktop as well. I don't honestly know if there are any good tutorials for that or not yet. Your best bet might be to check the documentation if there's not a good thing. But yeah, I mean, I've not really worked with React Native for web myself. I've worked with React Native, so I can't really comment on the whole ecosystem or the perspective about that yet. Salary drop in the sense if I jump from service-based to product-based company without any professional experience in backend. I am pipeline developer, Python at Animation Studio. I think you emailed me as well, Santosh. I think I replied to you, but you never got back to me. So anyway, your question is that I don't exactly know if you get a salary drop unless obviously I have the numbers with me, and obviously it would make sense that if you're transiting in the similar industry, that is tech, from something you are very well aware of to something which you are not much aware about, that is backend, it is possible that you might get a salary drop. So if that's what you're worrying about, I would say, like, stay on your job currently, work on your backend skills parallelly, and then make a switch when you're ready. So what do you have to say about Fast API? I've not really used Fast API, honestly, so I don't know what that is. Hey, do you have any idea on closures? A proper, clear explanation. If you followed my um, last video on front-end development, you would have seen me mentioning something known as about the 10 link strategy on Google, which would work beautifully on the topic you have asked about closures, which is like one of the most confusing kind of, which is portrayed as confusing topic in JavaScript. So my perspective, my definition of closure would be a function which remembers, right? Even after returning a function which remembers something, that is a closure. This is my perspective. Now you can go to Google, click, just search about what is a closure in JavaScript, read the top 10 links, top 10 articles, watch the videos, whatever comes in your top 10 suggestions, and take a look. I mean, you're going to get 10 different perspectives from 10 different people, hopefully, and that is actually going to just amplify the correct thing, which is the actual meaning of a closure in JavaScript, and it's going to bring down, or just destroy the biases which people have among themselves. So go ahead, Google it up, and you're going to get a good answer. Check fun function challenge. Yeah, I think he has some videos as well. I think I just saw a post on Free Code Camp today that he's retiring. So yeah, I mean, he does have good content on his channel, but yeah, I mean, he's not creating any content anymore, so that's a little sad. But yeah, for the most part, he has a lot of good content on his channel. How deep does someone has to go through object-oriented programming? How does one know that he knows enough about OOP to consider themselves good? Um, Honestly, I would say if you are able to build stuff with your OOP knowledge, you could consider yourself good, right? So if you are able to build real things where you can actually see that OOP has actually provided you some sort of significant advantage, that should be good enough, right? So you don't really have a finishing line. That's what I'm saying. There's not a finishing line where you're gonna be the good guy or the master guy. It's just going to be a transition, a smooth transition, where you become from a beginner to a better developer to a good developer to a more advanced developer. So for the OOP part, learn about learn about the concepts, learn about the paradigm, how it works, what are the best practices, build stuff with it, and when you actually see your stuff using the OOP architecture, you can consider yourself good, right? So nobody's actually giving you marks or anything for that. So yeah, I mean it's up to you. Is Firebase better than Node if you are a front-end developer wanting to create a website and time is a concern? Absolutely. I mean, if those two things are a concern, that is, you are a front-end developer and you do not want to hop in into back-end yet, and time is a concern, Firebase is a very good option. So yeah, I mean, go ahead with Firebase all day because it gives you a solid back-end scalable architecture out of the box. Absolutely. Which people you follow, either on Twitter on topic or magazine or website, to be better informed about what's big thing coming, what's next big thing coming, like AI data science boomed from the last 2 years. um AI has been around for a while. I won't say it has boomed really from the last 2 years. It is still booming. So yeah, I don't know if that really answers your question, but for the most part, you're gonna see these trends everywhere, right? So if you are following any tech blog or anything like TechCrunch, or maybe just following general companies which raise funds on technologies like AI and data science, so you're gonna get an idea that yes, investors are pouring in their money in these ideas, in these startups, in these products. So that means this is something which is valuable, because to be honest, things which really explode are the things in which a lot of money is put into, right? In the real world, artificial intelligence, Google bought the what it was back in 2015, brain something, which actually created, I don't exactly remember the name, but yeah, Google bought that deep learning startup or company, whatever it was. So I think that was like one of the um, one of the points where it's actually started to take up speed. Then all these companies and all these investors, people investing into softwares, data science, stuff like that. Right now, for example, AR and VR is very hot as an industry. So why is it hot? Because a lot of people are pouring a lot of money into that. So yeah, I mean, just keeping a look at a general trend where the money is flowing in the system is one of the ways to actually be aware about what's happening in the technology. So yeah, and which people to follow? I think if you go on to Twitter, if you start following some common topics, you're gonna see some people uh posting using those hashtags and stuff. So you follow those people and then see what people those people follow, because to be honest, on the first tier you're not going to get a lot of experts, because not a lot of people use all those hashtags and visibility and everything, but they usually have a lot of following, they're usually verified, stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, you can get on the top of the ladder, which you can even search people by their profession, like who's working in Google or who's working on the Chromium team or whatever they are working on. So yeah, you use that. Say something. What should I say? I want to be really good in JavaScript. Any advice and resources to use? This whole session was literally on that. So you might want to rewatch this if you haven't watched it, or maybe if you're new here. So yeah, just give it a watch from starting. What is better, being an expert in language, so being a master of none but a jack of all trades? That is definitely not the best. That's always what I say, is that you want to be a master of one and jack of all, right? So you want to be at least unbeatable in at least one language, or maybe in one tech stack, because that would be your sort of your value proposition, which you would sell to other people, that I can be so much valuable to you, I can bring this much value on the table. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, you need to be an expert in a language, in a tech stack, in something which you can own actually. So yeah, do you deal with SQL, and what do you think about it? It's obviously it's a mature solution. SQL databases have been around for, I don't know, from the starting, I think. I don't honestly deal with them on a day-to-day basis, because most of my work is with MongoDB, which is a NoSQL database. But what do I think about it? I don't really know. If you ask me a rapid fire question about SQL, the first thing which comes to mind is insecure SQL injection. So yeah, that's what I think. Are you gonna create games using JavaScript? Not really. Like, I have done all that stuff in the past. I have created a lot of small little games here and there and worked on little projects. But for the most part, I'm just focusing on code dam right now. That is the content part, the theoretical part. For the practical part, maybe I just maybe come up with a uh, gaming sort of thing. But we already have a gaming course on code dam, so if you want to check that out, we plan to bring in other content creators as well, which can create much more courses on practical parts. So yeah, you can expect a lot of courses on codedam regarding that. Do you know anything about Jamstack? I mean, you're gonna find a lot of tech stacks like that: Mern stack, Pern stack, Jamstack. So it's basically uh these stacks are available out there. The thing is that if you want to learn anything about them, the best way is to just Google them, see what technologies goes inside them, what happens with each of the technologies, and is that something which you are interested in working on. So you can even create your own stack, like if you like Angular and Java on server, and uh, MySQL, so you have your own Jamstack in that case. But honestly, that's not Jamstack, but you get the idea, right? How does one get used to using the documentation to learn new things instead of using tutorial videos? It feels like a headache having figure out what you'll use and what's good to know for future. I think that's what the word is. Well, for the most part, when you see that you can learn from documentation quicker than the video counterpart, that's when you start using documentation a lot more, because honestly, you don't really remember all the things all the time. So you have to approach some sort of resource from time to time. Now, it could be either a documentation, it could be a video, it could be a blog written by a person. But for the most part, documentation is the most concentrated form of information. And when you work a lot, you're going to see that sometimes you remember some things, sometimes you do not. But when you have that feeling that yes, you remember that particular thing, but you don't know the syntax, or maybe how many arguments it takes, or maybe you just have an initial feeling about what that function's name was, the first reflex is to go on a documentation, honestly. Obviously, you don't really want to go on Twitter to or YouTube actually to watch the whole video, because that just wastes time after a certain point. So yeah, for your question, you get used to it by incorporating it more and more in your workflow, and realizing when actually documentation starts saving you time, right? So that is the important thing. What are some good communities to take feedback on my app as a beginner and potentially gain users? For feedback, I think most of the people can just take a look at your link and do it for free. Like, you can join the Discord group for CodeDam as well. You can share your link in the resources or maybe in general tab in the general channel, and a lot of people would be happy to help you out. For potentially gaining users, this is a bit tricky because you want to have a good product, so that you retain the users as well, which you gain. So for gaining users, just like I said, feedback is important, so you got that part right. But for gaining part, you might need to polish the product a bit, do a little bit of marketing, have some incentive for the other guy or other person. And yeah, I mean, I could recommend the CodeDam Discord server for starting off as one of the ways to get feedback. All right, guys, so I'll just take one more question because it's over 2 hours now, and yeah, I mean, it's a bit stretched. So is there let's see, I'll actually answer both of these questions. The idea of what's considered being an expert is vague. It's not possible to know everything about a language, but when is someone considered an expert? Yeah, you're right. For the most part, you're right in the sense that you can't really know anything. But um I would say that I am talking to an expert when, for the most part, you have at least all the awareness about whatever exists in a particular domain. Like if you're working with JavaScript or anything, you have the awareness that this problem can be fixed with this solution. You might not really know how to do that, but you have that awareness, you have that information in mind that this thing can be used, right? Then obviously you can go ahead and look up the docs and stuff. But once you have solutions for most of the things, I would say that I'm talking to an expert, right? So if you can solve like 99.9999% problems yourself without being clueless at all, which rarely happens to experts, to be honest. I've talked to a lot of people I admire, and yeah, they just seem to have the whole idea, the whole picture in front of them for the most part. And yeah, so you can call those people experts. And the last question is there any platform or website where I can improve my skills, like in real job, by doing some real projects or part of some complicated project? It's a tricky place to be in. I'm actually trying to have a section on CodeDam which is just for projects, but the idea is that for the projects you can't really have a website really to practice the whole thing on, because projects tend to get a little bit more complicated than your average regular exercises and small projects. For example, I would say Free Code Camp actually offers a bunch of projects which you can implement, and you can run their test runner on the projects to see if you passed all the things. But do that, but parallelly I would say just take inspiration, just try to clone the stuff you like, just try to come up with ideas just like what I discussed in the project section, and try to do it yourself as well. Like that is the most important part. Try to do stuff independently as well, so that would actually get you rolling. So just to answer your question. So yeah, guys, that was pretty much it for this session. I hope you learned something out of this, and I would try to maybe clean up the video a little bit, just trim the parts where there was any problem or anything. And this session would be available online. Don't worry if you missed some part of it or most of the part. Yeah, this would be available. That's all for this video, I guess. And yeah, I'll see you then in some other session, in some other video, in some other time. So good night from India, and keep learning JavaScript.